Roxo Media House.
From the Flying T Club studios at Roxo Media House, this is Frogs Today, with a preview of the College Football National Championship game, featuring ESPN college football analyst David Pollack. Plus, our Frogs Today team of experts weighs in. And now, here's your host, the voice of the TCU Horned Frogs, Brian Estridge.
Friday edition of Frogs Today starts right now. It is our college football championship game preview, folks. And boy, do we have some wall-to-wall coverage for you here over the next 4 or 5 days from frogstoday.com, starting with our show here tonight. Coming up a little bit later on, David Pollack's going to join us from ESPN. We'll break down this matchup, get his insight into what he sees from the Horned Frogs. And then we'll bring in Melissa Tribe-Wasser and Marshall Newhouse. They'll give us their take on what TCU has to do to be successful. And we go even deeper, because this is when it gets kind of football nerdy. When David Bowden shows up and we start talking X's and O's, start breaking down some tape for you. All of that's happening on this, our college football championship game, special. Let's just call it that from Frogs Today. All right, but first, before we get into all that, we got to talk about what happened in basketball on Wednesday night for the Horned Frogs. 88-87 was the final. The Horned Frogs now 2-0 in Big 12 play. They knock off number 16 Baylor in Waco, down 17 points in the first half. Frogs were down 10 at halftime, came storming back, and Chuck O'Bannon nailed it from the corner. We caught up with Chuck after the game.
Well, we had 10 seconds left, and we knew we wanted to get Mike Miles the ball, and obviously Baylor knew that as well. So Mike told me, if Baylor comes at me with a double team, I'm throwing you the ball, I'm going to come your side. And so, I just stayed ready. I saw the double team come. Me and Mike made eye contact for about half a second. He gave it to me, and I made the shot.
Big 12 is hard, just in general. We had Tech at home. That was a hard game. Big 12 was just hard. Texas just lost to Kansas State, so anybody can be beaten this one. Just stick with it. Get to our principles. We had 14 deflections. We got to get 40 to 30. So we just had to get deflections, rebound, out-rebound, and stick with our turnovers.
We've been down big before, we've come back from big deficits, and it made it easier for us because we knew that we weren't playing as good as we should play. So, it would have been a different story if we were playing well and losing by 17, but we weren't. So that helped us in the long run.
It was a group effort. Down the line, down the stretch, I think the coaching staff did a great job of executing and coming up with plays during the right times. The players did a great job of executing. The bench was very supportive on the stretch. I think collectively as a group, it was a great team win.
Yeah, I think playing together last year, I think that kind of helped us out. So we all know what each other want to do. We want to play fast, but at the same time, we got to play smart.
Last year, we were a high turnover team, and that's one of our main focuses that we changed this summer.
It's crazy because we were very calm just because we've been in that situation before and we know the talent we have and we know what we have to do. We have a lot of veterans on this team, so we know down the stretch what we have to do. So we were calm, just collective, just playing one possession at a time. It shows how our depth and how much depth we have on this team. Chuck hit a big-time shot towards the end. They probably thought Mike was going to shoot the ball, but Chuck, being who he is, stepping up in that moment, hitting that shot, knocking it down, just shows how much players we have that can really hoop.
At the end of practice every day, we would have a 4-minute game, and then after that, we got to shoot free throws. So it's pretty much what we do every day. So we just stick to our principles.
The second half adjustments made by this coaching staff and this team, well, it just worked out perfectly for TCU. How about the confidence that Jamie Dixon displayed in Rondell Walker out there? Speaking of confidence, how about the confidence he displayed in Chuck O'Bannon? Draws up that last shot for him, and Chuck had not had a great offensive night. But then the subtle substitution of Xavier Cork into the lineup to protect the rim for TCU at the end paid off. Here's Jamie Dixon post-game from Waco.
Start as far as which guy made a more clutch play down the stretch. As I joked there, Xavier with the block, we substituted him in there. I almost got deflection on the play, which we knew we were going to run, and we just missed it on the throw it ahead. We call that play Valpo after his dad. Homer, Coach Drew, I should say. But Chuck hitting the shot, Mike making the pass, Eddie hitting the free throw, Rondell with the rotation over to get be there for the rebound and the putback. I mean, we just battled through so many things. We battled through foul trouble. They were unbelievable from the free throw line. I mean, it's amazing. They made them, but to get there as many times is even more amazing. But 7 turnovers in a game like that where they're pressing all over the place is remarkable. And we've been a low turnover team all year and been forcing them at the same time. So that's what we did. Obviously, the threes hurt us in the first half. We came in saying no threes, and they just were on fire. But also, we weren't there defensively. So great recovery. We went into halftime, and as I told them, I said, guys, we had confidence at halftime. Cutting it down was huge, and I told them we're going to play much better, and we certainly did. So, I think that was the key. I think halftime we came in feeling, hey, we're lucky to be down 10 with 9 threes and getting out rebound by 8, and we obviously outscored them 7 down that stretch. So that gave us some momentum in the second half. We came in kind of down and cut the deficit real quick after that.
88-87, the final. The Horned Frogs with the big win. Take on Iowa State tomorrow here at Show My Arena. Make sure you're here for that one. Then things really start to heat up. Texas on Wednesday. Then you got a road trip the next weekend to West Virginia and Kansas. This team proving they're one of the elites in the toughest league in the country, the Big 12. All right, time to turn our attention now to that national championship game that happens on Monday at SoFi Stadium. Standing by is David Pollack from ESPN. He's going to help us break down this matchup between the Frogs and the Georgia Bulldogs, and he joins us next when Frogs Today continues in a moment.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU, both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Welcome back into our College Football National Championship preview here from Frogs Today. Time to learn more about what this matchup is all about with the Georgia Bulldogs. And we do that with David Pollack, who joins us right now from ESPN, kind enough to give us some time. David, good to see your face again, man. Thanks for hopping on with us. First off, let's dive into this. Can you help put to rest this storyline that TCU doesn't deserve to be in this national championship game?
I think that got put to rest a long time ago. I think the Cinderella story that people talked about for a long time, after you took care of Michigan, there's no more talks of that. I mean, you go up and down this roster, and that's what we do, obviously, all year long, and we watch all these teams. And, I mean, is you talk about trios, is there a better trio of quarterback, running back, receiver in the country? I mean, you're talking about the first wide receiver drafted. You're talking about multiple offensive linemen on this line drafted. You're talking about the quarterback being drafted. The running back's going to be one of the first running backs drafted. So the Cinderella story, both cornerbacks are elite for TCU. I mean, it's been a fun year. Listen, I didn't see it coming. Let's be clear. I definitely didn't see this one unfolding like it has. But it's been a heck of a year, and definitely not short on talent. And I look for TCU to be very competitive this weekend and show off some of that star power, some of that speed, some of that skill, and some of that's worked all year long.
But you know what? You recognized it earlier than a lot. I mean, you started talking about what was happening in Fort Worth. And, you know, there was some magic to what was going on here with Sonny Dykes. We kind of point to that Oklahoma game as the turning point. Yeah, Oklahoma's not necessarily what they've been in years past, but to be able to handle them the way that they did, Max throwing for 300, Kendra running for 100, Quentin Johnson, or no, it was Tay Barber over 100 yards receiving. I mean, that said a little something, didn't it?
Oh, 100%. And I think just the maturity in which they handle it. Like every week it was, one thing I learned a long time ago about football is football doesn't work. It doesn't work. What you are to start the year is what you are to end the year. Like a lot of times, man, I remember my first year in college, and it was the first year with Coach Rick, and could be, right? We didn't have that confidence. We win a close game at Tennessee, and I remember it was like, okay, like this dude knows what he's talking about. Like I believe in this guy, and I think the same thing with Sonny Dykes is you continue to prove yourself as a first-year coach throughout a season, and then you go, all right, this dude knows what he's talking about, and you got to find a way to win by the skin of your teeth. You got to find a way to sometimes get lucky, like. That's part of football, but I think as you've seen TCU develop down the stretch, Bijan Robinson. Oh, TCU can't stop the run. That 3-3-5 is not very good. Hit him in the mouth. Play physical. Michigan, big ground game. Not going to be able to stop it. I think TCU, from where they started and playing those close games, you get confidence, you get belief, you believe in the guy at the helm, and then all of a sudden you start realizing, like, we're good. Like, we're not this team that we've been in the past that skates by, or this team that's been pretty good. We got a chance to be one of the best teams in the country, and then they've proved it along the way, every step of the way.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. Sonny Dykes earlier this week said we've kind of been building this airplane while we're flying it. You know, every week they kind of add on to it and build more confidence. Everybody's in, you know, and assisting in this thing, and it has been a work in progress. And they are different today than they were at the beginning of the year. And you talked about that defense, that 3-3-5. Now you're a defensive guy. Give me some sense of what you see out of it and what you like, and maybe what you go, that might hurt them in this game.
Well, I think when you run a 3 down front, if you talk to every coach in college football at any level, high school, whatever, first thing I want to do is I want to bring the tight ends on the field. Why? Because those defensive linemen are going to line up over the tackles. In your league in the Big 12, you build a defense to stop the spread. You don't build a defense to bring it in tight and say, let me cram the football down your throat. That's not the defense you would run. So it has to morph a little bit. It has to change. Blitz rate versus Michigan. You guys were last in the country in blitz rate. Blitz 10% of the time versus Michigan. You blitzed a quarter of the time, 25% of the time. You saw Minter flying through on run-throughs all the time. So this defense is built to, spill the football, run it down, tackle in space. 2 corners, elite corners. One of the best 1-2 punch at corner in the country. Really good on the outside. If you want me to talk what I see from a vulnerability standpoint, the slots. Covering the slots is an issue. You saw Roman Wilson get loose for Michigan. You see big plays throughout the season. Arian Smith went nuts in the Peach Bowl. He's a 10-100 guy. Like, that's legit. That's a college time. Like, he ran that at Georgia his freshman year, a 10-1. You saw him run by the Ohio State guy that also slipped and fell, but he was going to be by him regardless. Can you cover him? Brock Bowers will be in the slot. Georgia likes to run multiple tight end sets. Now, their tight end, Darnell Washington, who's one of the best tight ends in the country, he's banged up, and I don't know if he'll play or not. So that would definitely be an advantage if he didn't get to play. But this offense definitely is a great offense from Georgia. But it's streaky. It will have instances where it will go really, really crazy hot, and then it will go cold. So TCU's defense, what did they do in the Fiesta Bowl? Pick six, made some big plays, created 3 turnovers. We'll have to do that again against Georgia.
Here's the thing, though, David. I think there was an advantage TCU as far as speed was concerned against Michigan. Now, Michigan's faster than most Big Ten teams. We know that. And Jim Harbaugh's worked to make it a faster team. Still, though, TCU was faster than Michigan. They won't be faster than Georgia, will they? And then the second thing is, I'm not so sure Michigan knew what they were in for. I'm not saying they were overlooking them, but I'm just not so sure they had a full, complete understanding of TCU. Frogs aren't going to surprise Georgia, though, are they?
I think it helped Michigan for sure because they had the same thing Ohio State benefited greatly from all that time talking about no shot, no shot. Big Ten football. I heard Sonny Dykes talking about Big Ten football, and they want to get in that. And I heard McCarthy talking about that 3 high safety look. They're going to get some physicality. So you ain't gonna get bulletin board material from Georgia. They're not going to talk very much. They've been Kirby-anized for sure. But when you look at this matchup, Georgia's definitely got speed. But I'll argue this. I think from a TCU standpoint, I think there's more guys in this year's NFL draft that will get drafted from TCU than there will be from Georgia. Now, I look at Georgia's, Bowers obviously is going to get drafted. Aaron Smith's going to get drafted. There's a lot of young guys that are going to get drafted later on, down the road as well. But obviously just Kirby and Georgia are the standard now in college football. 3 out of the last 6 years they've played for a national title. 3 out of the last 6 since Kirby's been there 7 years. So he's really changed the brand, a chance to go back-to-back, the way they recruit, the way they handle their business and take care of business. And remember, they lost to Alabama in overtime, the one year in the championship game. So that could have gone either way as well. But definitely, Georgia's not going to be scared of the moment. Georgia's won on the big stage. Michigan's been there. They haven't won yet. So it definitely is a different bird.
All right, let's leave with this, the 2 quarterbacks. I mean, these are the kind of guys you want at the helm. They're winners. They're leaders. Their teammates love them. They seem like good dudes off the field as well. Any advantage to either one here?
I think, first of all, what you just said, you can't even quantify. Both of these guys don't fit the stereotype to be here. Like, everybody knows Stetson Bennett's story, I think, in the country now. Walk on, earned a scholarship, junior college, came back, walked on. Like, this is a guy that okay, some of you TCU fans might not know this. Last year, before the season started, okay, so fall camp, Stetson Bennett got this many reps in fall camp. 0. JT Daniel, 5-star Brock Vandergrift, 4-star Carson Beck. They told him, if you want to play, you should probably go somewhere else. Like, and that dude's playing for an opportunity to play in back-to-back national championships. So unreal. He's got serious onions. I mean, to be able to do what he does in fourth quarter and big moments, like that dude comes through in the clutch. Duggan, when you know his background and where he grew up on a farm in Iowa, it fits perfectly. Baling hay, it fits perfectly. Roll up your sleeves. It gives me throwbacks of the Big 12 championship game when he just put his team on his back. He looked exhausted, everything he could. His running ability is paramount in this game. He has to run the football a bunch. Miller's injury being banged up, that's a huge deal. Like, I think more of the load is going to be on Duggan. He's going to have to evade pressure and make plays with his feet. Duggan is going to have a lot expected of him. He's a bigger, stronger Stetson Bennett. He's got more physicality. You can run him more. Georgia doesn't run Bennett a lot because Bennett's 5'10", 185 pounds soaking wet. So both these quarterbacks, great dudes, great backgrounds, counted out time and time again. Stetson Bennett was not the starter a year ago to start the season on a national championship run. Duggan not the starter this year to start the TCU's national championship run. So a lot of similarities between the two.
All right, I know you got more important things to do. Got to get to that family. Got some practices we got to get to. Let me ask you this real quick. Is it closer than 13.5?
I think so. I think it is. I think TCU's ability to score in their offense. And one last thing about TCU, it's fun to have sizzle, and it's fun to have the number 1 wide receiver that's going to be drafted and a top running back and a really good quarterback. They got physicality on the offensive line. Big boys across the front. He's 315 average across the front, over 100 games experience starting. It's not a fluke, dude. It's not. There's a reason. I think it's the sizzle, it's the skill with the physicality. The defensive line is one of the strengths of this unit. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a great championship game, and I look forward to a lot of scoring again, dude. Semifinals were awesome. They were close games, a ton of scoring, and I hope we get that again.
You're the best, man. Look forward to seeing you out there, David Pollack. Thanks for the time here today.
No problem. Have a good one, brother.
All right, there he goes, David Pollack. Still to come, Melissa Treibwasser is going to join us, and Marshall Newhouse. We continue to break this game down even further here on Frogs Today after this timeout.
Texas-based Happy Water offers the best tasting sugar-free kids drink ever made. Happy Water comes in 4 delicious flavors that you can find at local retailers and on Amazon. Each pouch contains 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories, and 0% juice. Head to happydrinks.com for more information and to purchase Happy Water. That's HAPI Live happy, be happy, drink happy.
For exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits, subscribe now at frogstoday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on frogstoday.com.
Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com.
Welcome back in. It is our College Football National Championship special edition here on Frogs Today, and we got 2 of our experts in the house right now as we start to break down this game a little bit further. Now, David Bowden's breaking down Georgia for us, guys, but I wanted to just talk about this game, the magnitude of it, the stage, and how the Horned Frogs handle it. Already in California is our own Melissa Treibwasser. She joins us. Of course, terrific writer here at frogstoday.com. And our football analyst, Marshall Newhouse, who spent, 14, 18, 22 years in the NFL. He's with us as well right now, joining us. They'll both be in California as part of our wall-to-wall coverage here on Frogs Today. Melissa, I want to start with you. You've been around this program a long time at TCU, covering it as a reporter. Give me some sense of this stage. You also are in California already, and how the reception will be for the Horned Frogs.
Well, I mean, I think that we've got great precedent for that, and what TCU did when they showed up at the Rose Bowl, right? And the way that the entire state, the entire Los Angeles region really embraced TCU and its fan base. We saw that in Phoenix and Glendale last week as well. TCU travels well. They spend well when they travel, and the fans tend to be pretty gracious and kind wherever they land. And so I think that the city of Los Angeles and Southern California, super fired up to have TCU back in town and to be able to showcase that university on the national stage. It also helps that there's Heath Guideside had a great stat about the number of Californians and Southern Californians that are currently students or alum that live in that area as well. So I think the reception is going to be overwhelmingly positive from the fan base, from the city, from the people at the National Championship Committee. There's going to be a lot of positive things said about TCU in the coming days. As far as how the team is going to receive it, I mean, there was every reason for them to walk out and look tight on Saturday night against Michigan. I mean, most of these players had never even been in a bowl game, period, let alone one of this magnitude. And we didn't see that. They've stayed loose. They've stayed grounded. I think Sonny Dykes and company have done an exceptional job of keeping his team just focused at the task at hand, letting them enjoy the moment, but also not letting them think the moment is bigger than they are. So I think that you will see the same kind of aura and feeling and vibe around the Horned Frogs that we got down in Arizona.
All right, Marshall, you've been in the biggest games of all time. You've played in games like this where all the eyes of the nation are on you. Do you have to prepare any differently? Does this team have to look at this game any differently?
Yeah, you have to recognize that it is the national championship. There's so much on the line, but you also realize what got you here. And what got you here was consistency. What got you here was Coach Dykes preaching, hey, we just got to do our job. We've got to just everyone do their individual duty. And as a whole, as a collective, TCU will be put in a position to win. And I think you had a chance for 3 to 4 weeks to see them just prepare. There were no games for a month for this team, and they prepared and they showed up and played and performed against Michigan. So now it's a quicker turnaround. It's 9 days instead of 20-something days. But I think that the equation stays the same, and it's just being consistent, getting guys as healthy as they can. We're talking about Kendre Miller. But guys we're used to the quick week turnaround. This team played 10 straight games without a break. So I think this is right up their alley. We also talked last week about Sonny saying the bigger the game gets, the simpler the game plan gets. Nothing's going to be just out of bounds for this team, both from a preparation standpoint, but also their mentality as a group coming into the game, even if it's being the national championship.
Marshall, I'm going to stick with you for this one because I'm curious. Going into that Michigan game, you got the sense, and we talked about the fact that Michigan maybe didn't understand TCU. I'm not going to say they were overlooking them, but let's say they were overlooking them. The Frogs won't have that advantage against Georgia, will they?
I don't think so. And, it's always a subjective thing if someone overlooks someone else. But TCU just, I think, was a better team. Michigan made some uncharacteristic mistakes. But on this level, with a team like Georgia, Kirby Smart coming from the Nick Saban tree, he calls it rat poison. I mean, any kind of little thing that might get his team off track, he's going to nip it in the bud. And you saw even as they had yet to accept the trophy for the Peach Bowl, Kirby Smart was saying, he was asked about TCU and said, we didn't play very good and we're not going to be able to beat them if we don't correct some things in this game. So there's not going to be any lapse from the Georgia team in their preparation. Again, they're trying to repeat as national champions. So they've been here before. And I absolutely think we're going to get their best shot. TCU is going to have their hands full. But again, TCU has shown that they belong here. And it's going to be a game, regardless of how you view Vegas and spreads and branding and legacy stuff. It's going to be a game. TCU is going to show up, but I believe Georgia will as well.
All right, Melissa, at some point along the line, Sonny Dykes has made a mistake. We just haven't seen it yet. Maybe the one play against Kansas State on the goal line. But this week, his team was asked, have you already won this game? Have you already won? Without knowing the outcome, just saying, okay, just getting there is a win. And to a man, they kind of laughed that off as, no, we're here to win. You get the sense that that's also what Sonny Dykes is preaching as well, that, hey, listen, you've come this far. Don't leave it on the table.
Yeah, I mean, for the fans, for the administration at TCU, the athletic department, the people around the city of Fort Worth, we should all be saying, hey, we've already won. I mean, clearly what this has done for TCU from a national perception, not just of the athletic department, but the university as a whole, what this is going to enable the athletics department to do in fundraising, what this is going to do for the application pool going forward. I mean, we saw a massive jump on the Rose Bowl, and the Rose Bowl is not the national championship game. So, yeah, I think the big picture, you can say that what this program has accomplished this year is a giant win, no matter what happens Monday night. But that's the last thing that you want to hear from the players and the coaching staff. This is unobjectively the easiest path that TCU is going to have to winning a national championship ever, very much likely, unless they are to make the playoffs again next year. Win one game and you play for a championship. Win two and you're champions. That's not going to happen in a 12-team playoff. You're going to have to win more and extend the season longer. So you are on that stage. You have that opportunity in front of you. You can see that trophy sitting at the edge of the field. Yeah, I mean, I would hope that they would go into that with the attitude of we're not done and why not us? Why not win one more and shock the world yet again? And I mean, the sense that I've gotten in talking with some of the players, not just last week, but in the last few days, is that they truly believe that they've earned this opportunity and they're here to compete. They're not overlooking Georgia by any stretch of the imagination, nor should they. But at the same time, they don't feel like they don't belong. And I think that comes from the top down, and it's a trickle-down effect from Sonny Dykes to all of the assistant coaches, from the leaders, the players that are leaders on the field. There was a lot of emotion Saturday after the victory on that field, but there was also not a sense of accomplishment. They want to keep playing. They want an opportunity to not just prove they can get to a national championship game, but that they can bring home the first national championship for TCU since 1938.
You know,
I think
Marshall,
might have been on that team. It might have been a senior.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, did you cover that? You didn't cover that game, right? Marshall, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the offensive line of TCU with you and the fact that they're going to be facing a Georgia defensive line that they haven't seen the likes of. Let's just be honest with you. Not only do they have the size that Michigan and some of the teams in the Big 12 have, but the speed on the edges. This is a terrific defensive front for the Bulldogs, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, they have playmakers across the board. They can line up four deep, not four deep, but four wide and just rush the passer, drop seven guys into coverage and get pressure. Jalen Carter, their inside defensive lineman, is going to be a high first-round pick. He's a mismatch nightmare. So, yeah, they're going to have their hands full. But I think TCU also shocked the world as far as the perception that, we don't have this size. We don't have the physicality. And that was never true to begin with. But I think people are like, okay, this is not a complete mismatch. These are guys that belong. These are guys with size and physicality and a toughness about them, led by Steve Avila. Alana Lee and big tackles. These guys are bigger than I ever was in college, and they're there. They're primed. They're ready to play the best game, I think, of the season. But there's no doubt that this Georgia front is formidable. They're going to have multiple pass rushers that can get after the quarterback, both inside and outside. But also their front seven, their linebackers, they're fast, they're strong, they're fast flow guys. They can knock you in the mouth, and they like to control the line of scrimmage with their front seven. So we've seen a little bit of flaws and holes in their back end, but to get to the back end, you have to go to the front seven. You've got to protect first. You've got to block guys up first. You got to get bodies on bodies on the second level, and then you get to the secondary that might have some susceptibility. But TCU's offensive line is going to have their hands full for the national championship. But again, why even start having doubt when they've done what they've done up to this point? So they'll be ready. They're a senior, veteran-laden group, and I don't think they're going to, cut any corners short. They're going to be prepared.
By the way, there was an anonymous Big 12 coach this week said that all 5 of those offensive linemen for TCU would be in an NFL camp. I thought that was quite interesting. All right, final thought here. Let's start with you, Melissa. Frogs win if they do this.
I think it's going to be protecting Max Duggan, and it's going to have a game plan that enables him to get the ball out of his hands quickly or gives him a really quick read pass option. Listen, I don't want to put this all on the shoulders of one player, but when you're playing the number 1 team in the country, the defending national champion, your Heisman runner-up quarterback is going to be the guy that's going to be the difference maker. He's going to need help. I mean, obviously, he's got talent. Quentin Johnston, we saw what Amari DeMarcado did on Saturday if Kendre isn't able to go. But at the end of the day, I think this is going to be Max Duggan once again dragging this team to the finish line against impossible odds. I believe that he is more than capable of doing it, but he's going to have unquestionably the best game of his career on the biggest stage. And I mean, if given the option, who else do you want having to have that pressure on him other than Max Duggan?
All right, Marshall Newhouse, Frogs win if they.
Yeah, I spoke about this a little bit in regards to the Michigan game as well, but I think a couple of big swing momentum plays. That could be turnovers, they could be explosive plays, which TCU is tops in the nation at. But, were we to say that TCU got 2 pick sixes in a semifinal game, you'd say they probably won that game, and it happened. So I think more of the same, and it's not a luck thing. Those were pressures that cause mistakes, and I think TCU on defense and offense puts pressure on you. And so turning the pressure into mistakes and those mistakes into points will be vital in this game for TCU to have a chance to win the national championship.
All right, Melissa Treibwasser already in California. Marshall Newhouse joining us as well. They'll both join us for our coverage From Frogs Today all week long as we get ready now for this College Football National Championship on Monday. Thank you, too, for joining us. We'll see you as we get to Los Angeles with our Frogs Today specials presented by our friends at Higginbotham Insurance. When we come back here on Frogs Today on our National Championship preview, we break down the Georgia Bulldogs even further. Coach David Bowden, well, he goes to the video. He joins us next here after this timeout.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU, both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
For exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits, subscribe now at frogstoday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on frogstoday.com.
Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Back with our final segment here. It is our College Football National Championship preview, and we say the best for last. At least that's what he told me on the cue card. He wanted to say. All right, we're going to break down this game further. Georgia, the Bulldogs, obviously, number one in the country. This is an explosive football team. I remember now, earlier in the week, you walked into the conference room with us, and you just shook your head, and you said, boys, these guys are different. And you're high on this team.
Yeah, I mean, they're a complete football team. As complete as it gets in college football, but that's the reason why they're defending national champions. There's no surprise there. They've recruited at an elite level. But really, I think offensively what they've done now is put it all together. They were, a few years ago, just a straight pro-style system now, and you go back to their offensive coordinator who's spent some time in the NFL. He was the head coach at Southern Miss, and now with Georgia as the OC, he's blended in some modern-day concepts, some RPOs, and really that's made them, at least schematically, a complete team, and they already had the players there.
Yeah, those Monkins should coach a little bit.
Yeah,
they get after it. All right, let's talk about Stetson Bennett, the quarterback. Obviously, Max spent some time with him at Heisman Trophy Day, and Sonny Dykes joked earlier in the week that he was impressed by him, the fact that he and Kirby were X's and O's and game planning while the event was going on. I mean, he's all in, huh?
Yeah, he is. I mean, obviously, everyone knows by this point, knows his story, and it's an incredible one, really, and to come back to the team and do what he's done. But I think, to your point, his maturity, his approach, his preparation is really where you can see it makes the difference for them offensively.
All right, you're here, David Bowden, to help me kind of shoot holes in them. I'm just going to be honest with you. So let's start with Stetson. Not the biggest player, but he's a decent runner. Throws it okay. How's the arm strength?
Yeah, it's what they need, right? Because he really trusts those big receivers on the outside, where he can make some plays where they're in man coverage. He just throws it back shoulder, has a nice touch on it, and I think honestly, the guy's just a winner. I mean, that means something, right? And so all the knocks and all the he can't do this, he can't do that. You put on the tape, he's winning them football games, and that's a guy you want to roll with.
Okay, so no flaw there. Let's go to the run. I mean, running back's pretty salty as well. I'm a big fan of the offensive line coach, Stacy Searles. I think he's one of the best in the business, and Georgia always has a good offensive line.
Yeah, they do. And to have him there, he came over right from North Carolina, was his last stop. But like you said, has been throughout college football for over 30 years as a true O-line guy, gets those guys right. So they'll be fine. You know about Georgia and the history of running backs. This year's a little bit different where they don't have necessarily that bell cow that just carries the load. They usually have one or two. They're really a little bit more running back by committee. Of course, Kenny McIntosh is the guy that you see that leads them in rushing, but he's also the third leading receiver. So he's a weapon where out of the backfield they'll throw some slow screens to him, and then they'll also put him out when they empty out the backfield. They'll put him. He can do a nice job running some routes.
Yeah, I was going to say this is not this is a running game that's not your typical Buck Bellew toss sweep to Herschel Walker. No, I mean there's more to it than this. Now they get creative in a run game, don't they?
They do, and it's really the simplistic, right? And we always talk about how that's why they're able to play a lot faster than they were when they were just straight pro style. Now in the run game now they asked Stetson Bennett to play in 3 fields, right? They divide it between the hash to hash to number on either side, and they just say, okay, where the number's not, that's where we're going to put the football, and Bennett does a really good job with that, and if they all spread out, then he knows to hand the ball off, and he has the stable running backs to do so.
All right, defensively, we've heard a ton about this defensive line. Now, we heard a lot about Michigan's defensive line last week. We've heard a lot about Kansas State's defensive line, and we've heard about Texas's defensive line. Stack this one up.
I think out of that group, everything you just mentioned, I think they're the best. I think they're the best in the country. Okay. I think the defensive front as a whole, people have criticized the linebackers. I think that's kind of foolish personally. They do one heck of a job. Everyone knows about Jalen Carter and the damage that he's done, but Nazir Stackhouse, kind of name is apropos. He's about 320 pounds. That's what he's listed at. I think they've shaved off a few in the program for him, but despite, in addition to the size, these guys can move. I mean, they're moving them all over the place. They're doing some wild things schematically. The thing is, if you can keep this team like anyone else, but particularly with these guys, you can't let them just tee off. You've run some tempo against these guys, get these guys running sideline to sideline, these big bodies, and tire them out a little bit, and stay in rhythm so they can't dial up all these exotic blitzes that they have.
Makes total sense. All right, defensive backfield. Fast. But the last couple of weeks, folks have been able to throw the football against them.
They have. Now, you look at the last one in particular, C.J. Stroud and those receivers that he has.
Pretty good.
Yeah, they are. But, at the same time, here at TCU, got a heck of a quarterback and some good receivers themselves. So I don't want to shortchange TCU. I think they can do some of the similar things. I think they will, it will be tough when you start getting one-on-one matchups. Now, Quentin Johnson can win against just about anybody.
Yeah.
He's got to stay on track, in verticals. But what they can do is, if they start getting him in some zone pressures, is there are some holes in that zone. And with a veteran receiver crew like this and a guy like Max Duggan to deliver the ball, I really think they could sit down and find some spots in those zones. And that's what Ohio State was doing really well, particularly with Marvin Harrison Jr. before he got hurt. That was a major injury. Yeah. I think he stays in the game, and TCU's facing off against Ohio State this week.
Okay, finally we found one little flaw there, maybe, in the defensive backfield. Special teams-wise, TCU's had an advantage in special teams really throughout the year. I thought they would have had more of an advantage against Michigan. I didn't think special teams played very well, as a matter of fact. Give me some sense in this game who's got the advantage going in.
Yeah, this one might be a draw when it comes to. I think because they're really well coached as well, as TCU is, and so I think the punting game they may advantage Georgia a little bit. How many times you get them to punt is the question, right? But I think everything else is equal just because they're disciplined. It's the same type of team, right? When it comes to that, disciplined, not going to beat themselves in the kicking game. So I think that's a draw in that area.
Kirby did say that he thought Darius Davis is the best returner he's played against this year.
Yeah, I think that's genuine, right? Yeah. It's hard to argue. His decision making sometimes, like whether to fair catch it or whatnot, can be the only thing questioned. But if you're coaching that guy, you say, hey, look, man, you got the green light. Take it anytime you want with that kind of talent.
Right. All right. I asked Marshall and Melissa this earlier. I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot. TCU wins if.
Yeah, I think the tempo thing we talked about, I think they're going to probably have to run Max Duggan as a +1 a little bit more than they've done all season. In games like this, you can, right? You can sort of roll the dice a little bit more when you're the heavy underdog and it's the last game of the season. So I think they've got to get him going in the run game. They've got to tempo those guys. And then they've got to be able to stop the bleeding versus their run game. I think, honestly, the other stuff where I think the corners will do a good job. They've shown, whether it's Hodges Tomlinson or certainly Josh Newton, against bigger receivers to be physical at the line of scrimmage. Don't let them get off the line of scrimmage. So if they take care of that defensively, only those two things, right? Stop the run and stop those big receivers, they'll be in good shape.
And get a couple of pick sixes.
Yes, that would help.
Yeah, right. that helps. All right. We've got a Facing the Frogs with Coach Bowden and Jamie Plunkett. That's going to drop Saturday.
Yes, sir.
So these guys are breaking down film as we speak, so you'll get a chance to see that. That'll drop here tomorrow on Frogs Today. So give you a real good insight into what's going on prior to this matchup. And obviously our coverage beginning here today from Frogs Today is all about what's happening now in Los Angeles. Every day of this, 4-day stretch now leading into that championship game, you'll get live coverage from Los Angeles here at Frogs Today. For Coach David Bowden, from Melissa Tribwas, from Marshall Newhouse, David Pollack, everybody who came by to see us today, a big thank you for that. We look forward to seeing you from Los Angeles here on Frogs Today.
Frogs Today is brought to you by the Flying T Club, supporting TCU student athletes, and by Richard's Rainwater. Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Frogs Today is a production of Roxo Media House.
Roxo Media House.